Hi, welcome. I'm Sarah D. Today I'm going to speak a little bit about the Holocaust Museum in Washington D.C. in 2014 on September 14th. I was there for a few days with my husband. He was on assignment with the Department of Social Sciences in the Department of the Army. And it was a heavy place to be. I don't know if you've ever been there or at any Holocaust museum, or met any people who were involved in that horrific time period. But I would like to share with you the experiences I've had in that, just a little bit. A long time ago, I used to sing out at hospitals, and there's a place called Helen Hayes Hospital, and I used to sing there for the patients. And when I was done singing, my husband would put away all the equipment, which was a big job, and I would go and I would talk with the patients. And one of the patients said to me, he was an older man, he was actually 72, I don't recall his name, and he was a twin. He said, "Look down on my arm and don't gasp." And I thought, okay. I looked down at his arm, and there was and there were numbers tattooed on his arm. And he proceeded to tell me about his experiences at Auschwitz, because he was a twin who was intimately acquainted with, I wish I was better with the names of the people who did those things. Mengele, and anyway. And he and his sister escaped. She was the one who was in the hospital at the time. And so she wasn't able well enough to be in the audience, but he was. And he talked with me. And he asked me to write a song for him. He said there was a New York Times article written about him called "Once There Was a Boy," and I tried to find it, I couldn't find it. And I put that away, that experience, except that one of the things he did tell me also is that in his dealings with experiences there, the thing he learned as a very, very young child, 4, 5, 6, is that he never wanted to be smart. He never wanted to learn anything, because if he learned how to read, if he learned how to write, if he learned how to be a doctor or anything, he might be like Mengele. And he did not want to have that kind of an influence in the world. And so the influence, besides the torture that he lived through physically, the mental torment and the limiting beliefs he put on himself for being able to learn from that experience, made it so he didn't have an education. He refused to learn to read. So the influence Mengele had on him was not only physical and emotional pain in the moment and forever, because of course there's that, but also he limited his ability to learn and to experience even the beauties and the positivities of learning and having an education. Influence. We all have influence. We all have an impact. We walk into a room and there is an energy shift, whether we feel it or not, or whether those in the room feel it or not. Things shift. When we were at the Holocaust Museum, I remember walking into one of the rail cars, and it's empty, and you couldn't walk into there without feeling all this. It was really awful to think of what they did. I'm not going to tell all the stories because I don't know all the stories, and I'm sure some of you know many of them, and some of you maybe experienced them. Maybe you're even related to those who experienced them. But there was energy and there was influence there, even going beyond the people being there and suffering. It was there. It was thick. And when we left, they gave us cards. Each individual person who lived through that. Actually, maybe not even all of them lived through it. But I've been trying to find that card because I wanted to read it to you, and I haven't been able to find it, so I'm going to share this anyway. Each card told about the person's life who was there to help you feel their influence. And they were asking for support to make sure that never happened again. And that was what it wasn't a meeting, it was a lot of meetings. It was like 3 or 4 days of meetings were about, and they do that every year there to make sure that never happens again anywhere. So that we can recognize those cues and those things that happened before that happened. This is the song I wrote while I was in that museum. It's called Can I Move the Ocean? Can I move the ocean? Can I stay the tide? Can my drop of water temper fear and pride? Can my story move you? Will it touch your heart? Will your sense of justice override the dark? Ignorance of darkness isn't justified today. Information flows and drips and drops and waves. Like water in the ocean, you can't help but get wet. What will you do with what you get? Can you move the ocean? Can you stay the tide? Can your drop of water temper fear and pride? Can your story move me? Can you touch my heart? Will your sense of justice override the dark? Darkness can't dim any bit of light. Even a flicker holds hope inside that someone will join their candle wick to flame and shine their light so darkness can't remain. Can we move the ocean? Can we stay the tide? Can our drop of water temper fear and pride? Can our story move us? Will it touch our hearts? Will our sense of justice override the dark? drop of water, tempered fear and pride. How your story moved you, how it touched your heart, how your sense of wisdom overrode the dark. I have a confession to make. I kind of changed it, and so I got lost. Nevertheless, in that song, I talk about influence. Now, my friend at the Helen Hayes Hospital wanted me to share his story. And his story, I can't tell the one that the Times told because I looked for it and I couldn't find it. But the story I got from him is that he took from that experience that he was not going to get an education, that he was going to remain illiterate so that he could not become that kind of evil. Everything we do, everything we experience, we make meaning out of. How do we make that meaning is all up to us. The influence we have is not totally up to us, except that we do have influence, whether we want to believe it or not. I tend to kind of think I want to not believe it, but I don't know. How about you? Are you fine that you have an influence? You do. You have an influence, and we get to choose our intention for our influence, but not necessarily the outcome, right? We don't get to necessarily choose the outcome. Steve Harvey, when he was a young boy, he wanted to become a comedian, and he wrote a story for school about that desire, and his teacher put an F on it and told him, don't you go home and you fix this. Do you know anybody in the entertainment industry? Do you know anybody who's a comedian? You aren't even that funny. I don't even know, where did you get the idea you could ever do this? You go fix this. And he was crestfallen. And he went home, and his father had influence too. And his father used his influence to tell his little boy, if that's what you want to be, you can be that. You don't tear that up. You turn it back in, and then you keep it on your bedstand, and you read that every night, who you are, who you're going to be, what you're going to do, what kind of influence you are going to have in the world. You are who you choose to be, and you get to choose that. You get to choose the influence you're going to be on yourself. And the way we do that is with our self-talk. And also the way we do that is with the things that we do so that we can believe our self-talk. Jordan Peterson says that it's necessary that we pick up a worthwhile struggle to become a worthwhile person. And his definition of a worthwhile struggle is find something that's heavy for you to carry and then carry it. In the process, you will become stronger. And in that strengthening process, you will have greater belief in yourself and in your ability to have influence. Great day I have behind me. You probably can't see it. It's too little. But I will do the hashtags of what great day means again. And I'm Sarah D. And I wish for you and for me that we choose to make each day a great day. That we choose to have influence in our own minds and in our own hearts so that we can carry that worthwhile load, that we can become stronger, and that we can encourage each other to do the same. P.S. One other thing I wanted to say. This last year has been interesting, and maybe it's always been this way. Just because of COVID doesn't mean it's actually any more interesting than any other year, because people are people and people have influence and people find what they seek for. And with this song, Can I Move the Ocean? And can my drop of water temper fear and pride? And then the part that talks about not letting darkness remain. And then the part about justify Will your sense of justice override the dark? And justice is not just, justice has a larger meaning than what we usually think. We think of right and wrong and some legal thing maybe, but our sense of justice is our sense of lined upness, which of course that also does relate to legal, but does what we know is real, do our thoughts line up with what we know is real? Is there a straight mark going toward that? Like a bow and arrow going toward a bullseye, that arrow is justified if it hits the mark. The lines on a page, I don't have that kind of a page here, but the lines on a page that justify the page, the margin line, that keeps it even and straight. Will your sense of justice override the dark? And then the other part, ignorance of darkness isn't justified today. We can't say, I don't know that there's difficulty in the world, and I don't know that there's, I deny that there's darkness in the world, but because there is so much information flowing, but we can deny letting good information in and only taking in poor information. And I guess therein lies the rub. We all have a different definition of what good information is. And so it's more difficult to be justified with each other, I suppose. There are those who talk about the end of the world coming right now and everything going to go to hell in a handbasket, whatever that means. And they're looking for ways of how that's happening. And oh, let's see, oh, this is happening, and this is happening bad. Oh, and this is bad, and let's put that in there. And oh man, oh, look at all these bad things that are happening. Look at all the evil people. Oh, this is so evil. And they refuse to look at the good. And so they're justifying their thoughts, their focus, their vision on all the bad. And if you do that, that's what you're going to see. Your brain is set up that way. And so my desire is to have an influence in whatever way I can, that we go, oh, what's good about the world? Let me put that in here. Oh, and you know, maybe we can stay off that hell in a handbasket time indefinitely. Maybe it only comes if we give up. Anyway, that was my PS. Thank you for watching. I'm Sarah D. Make it a great day.